Okay, hello. So my name is Tariq Cranston, and this presentation is for my INST 661 Introduction to GEM Analytics course on my special topic paper. And I'm not sure if we're supposed to have our face cam on, but we're gonna keep it PG and not have face cam on, else this would turn into a rated R horror film real quick with how rough I'm looking for finals week. Right, so for my special topics paper, I decided to look at virtual reality training data, talk about what it is and how we can use it, and I also added a twist where I tried to relate the analytics we can collect from this data to VR training in response to active shooter incident situations. Yes, very intriguing, I know. Alright, so let's get into it. So, virtual reality has remained a major force for change in the learning and development fields in recent years, and immersive technology is now used in training by small to large businesses all over the US, and this number is growing exponentially with 26% of businesses in 2020 using VR slash augmented reality to train employees. What gives though? Apart from opening up new avenues for learning, incorporating VR into your training also makes tracking simpler and gives you access to intriguing new datasets. It implies that you can begin to determine where participants place their attention, how they feel about training, how it has affected their performance, and much more insight that is priceless to those with an interest in using the technology. But before we get into the meat of the matter, let's talk about reasons specific entities might be interested in analyses of this data with respect to the active shooter simulation aspect of it all. So the data analyses gathered from these experiments would be very helpful to schools, businesses, and police academies as well as other government agencies, as a study by Texas State University found that 34% and 37% respectively of all active shooter incidents that occurred between 2000 and 2010 occurred in schools or businesses, and you can see that on the paragraph right there. And it's important to understand that integrating virtual reality technology into the training gives employees plus police officers in schools a more memorable and immersive learning experience. This expectation comes from analyzing the data that can be obtained from these trainings. And I'll get into an example of where virtual reality training could help and how analyzing the training data could benefit these parties in a sec. Right, so let's break down the data analysis aspect of it all. So, data on who uses the training, how often they use it, and how long they use it are essential pieces of information. In the end, usage data lets us know who finished the training and isn't just for VR. However, because it paves the way for ROI return on investment, it is particularly crucial for VR training. So, for example, by implementing modules that have an impact on a large number of users, not just a small sample, the majority of businesses can create the strongest business case for VR. Therefore, the impact will be greater the more people use the training. And usage data are simple quantitative data that serve as the basis for all future analytics. And this foundation provides the context for all analyses of training performance. Okay, so now that we have some background information, let's start defining the various analyses and or algorithms that would assist our actors in gaining some useful insights from these experiments. Right, so performance data analysis. Performance data typically provides a more accurate representation of behavior in the real world. It can show how skilled a trainee is at a specific task. The majority of performance data, however, can provide an incomplete, if not inaccurate, picture of a given trainee's competency due to drawbacks of traditional data capture, example paper, pencil test, computer based multiple choice questions and stuff like that. Okay, so attention and engagement data analysis. So, data on head movements, eye tracking, interactions, and clicks are examples of attention and engagement metrics that show where and how users are paying attention. These immersive quote unquote data which are exclusive to virtual environments have two benefits over conventional training. So first off, because immersive training environments closely mimic the dynamic environment of the real world, the actions that learners take there, their decisions, their reaction times, and whether they look will be more representative of their actions in the real world. Secondly, VR gathers more useful data types more frequently. So individuals can interact with their surroundings in a naturalistic way during immersive training. And VR can capture these real time interactions. As a result, it is possible to determine a person's level of comfort, confidence, and expertise with a particular task using data gathered from their naturalistic interactions with their immersive learning environment. And the last thing, or the last one we get into, is predictive analysis. So, predictive analysis is the process of combining performance and engagement data with actual data to produce a predictive model that is based on machine learning. Predictive analytics allows you to precisely predict how performance in the immersive training will play out once someone is on the job, even though attention and engagement data typically give a better representation of how someone would perform in the real world. So let's look at an example. So consider how police academies could modify these simulations for their trainees by connecting this to um, special topic of VR training for active shooter incidents. Um, let's imagine that a police trainee responding to an incident in the simulation is good at spotting potential safety issues in the setting of the attacker he's trying to subdue, whatever they may be, but is poor at determining the threat level of the attacker committing the act. So you might not realize, however, just how much people could be put in danger in the real world as a result of their poor performance in immersive training when determining the threat level of the attacker. And predictive analysis can shed light on this relationship by predicting potential future casualties based on the effectiveness of the immersive training program. So, while predictive models can be created for any set of data, it's important to remember that not all predictive models are created equally. The strength of the underlying relationship between the data determines how accurate the predictive model is. So that would be like the relationship between immersive safety performance and real world safety incidents. So in actuality, this means that if data from immersive training methods reflect real world behaviors more than data from traditional training methods, then predictive models derived from immersive training data should also reflect real world behaviors more accurately. And one more thing, making sure there is enough data is another consideration. So, predictive analytics can theoretically be built with almost any data set. But if they're built for data sets that have too few trainees or aren't composed of the right types of trainees, they may not apply to data from new trainees, which reduces their usefulness. Okay, so let's look at some specific examples of metrics. Decision making. Decision making data not only gives precise insight into how difficult a task was for a person, but it also enhances decision making resilience and response time in real world scenarios. Additionally, different virtual activities and platforms can be added to enhance decision making not only in individual tasks but also across a larger group, offering insightful data on human psychology. The gaming industry has already provided good examples of how something like this can be implemented and measured with decision outcome based games already on the market. These games prompt the user to make crucial decisions that change the course of the entire game and also have what they call QTEs or quick time events that force the user to make quick decisions on a particular issue within the game. Noteworthy games like this include Until Dawn and Detroit Become Human. And the next metric I'll talk about is biometrics. So, one popular method of tracking data through VR is by evaluating the biometric performance of users. It usually measures things like heart rate and energy expenditure, but it can also be adjusted to measure things like brain activity. It not only sheds light on stress, anxiety, and confidence levels, but it also facilitates comprehension of how competent people might feel about completing particular tasks. So why did I choose these two metrics? So due to the high stress that users would experience during an active shooter incident simulation, these two metrics are particularly crucial in our data analysis, and they would be adept at determining how stressed out each participant appears to be. Alright, so if we consider sentiment analysis, there might be room for improvement. Even though this concept may not be novel, it isn't given enough attention when it comes to virtual reality training, with the majority of attention going to other, more widely used types of analyses. Sentiment analysis displays the user's verbatim reactions to the experience. Frequently, this is gathered by posing open ended questions like: do you think the training was worthwhile? How did you find the training? Was a proper context covered in the training? And this is to ensure that everyone performs at the same level. You want them to experience a situation and become accustomed to an environment. In this case, we hope they don't to the active shooter thing, but in certain circumstances, you want them to experience the same level of pressure as they will in the real world. Therefore, it's crucial to ask these questions to validate the participants and ensure that the objectives are being met. Alright, so my closing thoughts. The data analysis types mentioned in this presentation paint a complete picture of training when combined. And with this VR data at your disposal, you can make better decisions that ultimately influence even major corporate goals. When you use virtual reality technology in training, your trainees will have a more engaging and memorable learning experience because users of VR are taken to a novel and exciting environment where they can learn independently as opposed to traditional teaching methods that are restricted to the confines of a classroom. And these are some of the reference that I use for this research. And thank you for your time.